If you want better cardio for Jiu-Jitsu, have you been told that you just need to roll more? Well, is that true? And what does the science have to say? Hey guys, my name is Dr. Josh Jagoda, and I am a sports rehab chiropractor, and I'm a Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And today we're going to uncover some of the truths about Jiu-Jitsu, the cardiovascular system, and what you can actually do, and what are the protocols that you need to do so that you can enhance your cardiovascular system, improve your time on the mats, and improve your recovery time doing all these other fitness things that you love to do. So I get asked all the time what type of supplements I use, and one thing I actually use is protein powder. The other thing that I have been actively avoiding is protein bars until recently. Now, recently I have discovered a protein bar called David, and this has 28 grams of protein and about 150 calories, and there's no artificial sugars, and there's no chemicals, and it's a very, very clean. And the reason I'm recommending and endorsing it, not because they're a paid sponsor of this video, they are not, I would repeat that again, it's because they're a high quality protein bar that I actually use that are going to help you manage your protein intake and not give you all the junk and all the chemicals. So not only that, but they do taste good and I really enjoy them. So check the link below, guys. This is a non-paid sponsor of our videos and something that we've teamed up because a lot of you have asked me, what do I use, what do I take? And this is something I take, especially if you're on the go, if you're quick, you're really trying to increase the protein intake within your body. So give them a check out and take a look. There's an affiliate link listed below. So the sport of Jiu-Jitsu is primarily an aerobic sport mixed with anaerobic bursts of energy. So those highly explosive moments where you're doing a takedown or you're really going for a hard submission or something like that, or you're going for a scramble, it's mostly an aerobic, but with some oxidative and anaerobic capacity mixed in that. So when we're talking about the three energy systems, we're talking about the anaerobic, which is roughly 90 to 100% or all out maximum. Then we're talking about the oxidative or glycolytic. We're talking about 80 to 90% of our heart rate maximum. And then when we're talking about the aerobic system, we're talking really about that 60 to 70% of our heart rate maximum. In addition, it's going to be really important that you understand what we call the zones of cardio, or the zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Obviously, going through this, zone 1 is the lowest, and as you go up the ladder, it gets harder and harder. So if you are somebody who's trying to really track your heart rate and really be precise with that, you're going to need to understand the zones of heart rate, and you're going to need to know where you fall in between those zones based off of your age and your aerobic capacity. And we're gonna do some calculations with it. So before we get into the zones, we need to really understand that the aerobic capacity is probably one of the most important things that you need to do, because not only does it need to increase, but it needs to be understood that the aerobic capacity that you have or don't have is going to determine how you recover. So let me say that again in a different way. If you do aerobic exercises, it's going to help your anaerobic, meaning your sprints. But if you don't do the aerobic and you don't get good at that, you're not going to be good at the anaerobic. So what helps you recover best is going to be your aerobic capacity, and that is the base of your foundation. If you do not have a good or a strong base, then it's going to be more important that you actually focus on that base and that aerobic capacity first and build that base out before you start driving up in that anaerobic capacity. Now, the truth is most Jiu-Jitsu players are actually somewhat decent or at least average in their aerobic capacity. So it's really going to be important that you potentially increase that base even further, and then also in addition to that, increase your anaerobic base as well. So one thing you're going to be able to need to do in this calculation is going to understand how to calculate your aerobic capacity based off of those numbers that I mentioned before. Now, according to the research, that is not entirely true for every single person, but it is a good range to start with. So for example, if you're 220, minus your 30 years old. You're gonna do that math and you're gonna come out to 190, and that is going to be your maximum heart rate. So if you're going to use 190 as your heart rate maximum and you're going to be 30 years old, you would have an anaerobic threshold between 171 to 180 beats per minute. For the oxidative or glycolytic, you're going to take that and it's going to be roughly 80 to 90%, and that is going to be 152 to about 170 beats per minute. So for aerobic capacity, that's going to be about 60 to 70%, and that's going to be about 114 to 133 beats per minute. So now that you understand what aerobic capacity is, you understand where your heart rate maximum is, and you know how to divide that, how many days a week do you actually need to train this system so that it can increase and you can actually start feeling significantly better in your role? According to the anaerobic system, you would do 1 to 2 times a week. For the oxidative or glycolytic, you would also do 1 to 2 times a week. And for the aerobic capacity, you would do roughly 2 to 3 times a week. Now, this does not include any jiu-jitsu. You would actually have to factor that also in as well, because now you have to do your strength training, your jiu-jitsu roughly 3 times a week, and you would have to train the aerobic system a few times or several times a week as well. And now you can see through this sample program here how much that actually can be demanding of yourself, especially if you have kids, you have work, you have other factors, you're traveling, things like that, and you don't always have time to be a full-time athlete and do double sessions every day. A big factor in creating your aerobic capacity that a lot of people do not think about, and a big mistake here, is that most people, as they're hiking or walking or doing activities, they do aerobic capacity and they start to get over that zone 2, or roughly in this case 114 to 133 beats per minute. As they're increasing their heart rate, maybe they're hiking up a hill and they start to get to 140, 150. You don't want to do that. You want to try to stay within that range for at least 45 to 90 minutes at a time, and doing that at least once a week if you're a busy person. And if you're not a busy person, or maybe you have more time, maybe doing that 2 or 3 times a week. But a big mistake people do is they get out of that zone and try to stress their cardiovascular zone beyond that zone 2, and that's a mistake that they need to really work on not doing. Well, another argument that people are going to say is, well, jiu-jitsu can increase your aerobic capacity. Well, I really do think that is kind of true, but we have found through some of the research, if you're already conditioned to jiu-jitsu, well, the chances of it increasing it significantly is not going to be good enough, which really just means that you're going to need to supplement or add cardiovascular training into the mix when it comes to your jiu-jitsu. So another factor that you need to consider is that as you get more skilled in jiu-jitsu, and as you get better and your technique is better, and maybe you're not working as hard, or maybe you're going against lower level people, you probably need to do more cardio because you're not getting as much stress through the cardiovascular system as well. And as you age, in addition to this, as you age, your heart rate and your VO2 max and your capacity tends to go down. So it's really important that you work that as well. So let's bring it to a reality situation here, where maybe you are somebody who has kids, you work, you do all the things, and you're still trying to increase your jiu-jitsu, but you're trying to also improve your cardio capacity. Well, what are the protocols that I would potentially follow if this is a perfect world, right? And we understand that it's not. But I would train jiu-jitsu roughly 3 times a week. I would lift 2 times a week, and on at least one of those lifting days, maybe even 2, I would do some sort of anaerobic conditioning. So maybe you're lifting for 30 minutes and then you're doing some sort of anaerobic conditioning for a duration of time. And when we're talking about that duration of time, the anaerobic conditioning, it seems like the research says that 4 bouts of all-out maximum, roughly that 90 to 100% capacity, is going to be your best. So you might go sprinting or on the Assult bike for 5 to 15 seconds all out with roughly a minute or 2 break, and then you would do that 4 bouts. That seems to be the best way to increase your anaerobic capacity. And so another way you can also do that is by doing some kettlebell swings. Maybe you're not going all out, but you're working really hard for those 30 to 60 seconds or 30 to 40 seconds, taking about a minute off. That's more in the glycolytic or the oxidative phase, but it still gives you conditioning for that duration of time. And you could do that after your strength training and be done with that in roughly 10 minutes. So you can get your 3 times a week of your jiu-jitsu. you can get 2 times a week of your strength training, and then 1 to 2 times a week you can get some of anaerobic capacity training. And then 1 day a week at least, I would do 45 minutes to 90 minutes of continuous, low level, steady state type of aerobic capacity, where you're hiking, you're walking, you're rucking, you're doing some sort of bike or cycling, or doing something that allows a continuous level of aerobic stimulation and getting your lungs to work so that you can recover better. So when you look at that sample program between what I just listed to you versus what we did before, you're going to notice that you can roughly get all your training in, including your strength training and jiu-jitsu training, in roughly 6 to 7 sessions a week, versus maybe having to do it in 9 to 10 different sessions. So if you're a busy person, it's going to be really a lot harder, and you would do this for 6 to 8 weeks before you would possibly feel a lot different in your cardiovascular enhancements. So guys, I just want to give you a peace of mind of that is exactly what I would be doing when it comes to my cardio. I understand some days it's better, some days it's worse, but if we want to really take it back another step, you can literally do some sort of conditioning. There's so many different options. You could do burpees, you could do jump rope, you could do double unders, you can do assault bikes. And I really love the assault bike as an option because it's super safe, it's very objective. You can just go really, really hard. You're not gonna worry about going outside, what the weather is, slipping, maybe running on a turf field and breaking your foot or your ankle. It's really a very whole body thing. And when I'm doing this anaerobic capacity training, I really like it to make it whole body, and I really like the assault bike because it's so easy to do. And if you don't have one, that's okay, but there are definitely ways to do it, and I really think that the assault bike is one of the best ways. And when we're talking about low level steady state, you could do anything you want. Walking, hiking, jogging, rucking, cycling, it doesn't necessarily matter as long as you stay within that zone for that duration time. I highly recommend going something outside, being outdoors, and doing some sort of low level steady state thing with a friend and making it a little bit more social as well. This way you can also take breaks if you need to, and I say take breaks meaning like enjoy the view. Maybe it's 30 minutes to 40 minutes to go up the mountain, and you can enjoy that time with a friend. So there's just a lot of different ways to make sure that you get your cardiovascular enhancements in there. However, you really are going to need to build that base foundation first before you start getting that anaerobic capacity. But I would really make sure that I get that anaerobic capacity done once a week with 4 bouts. I would do that long form, steady state aerobic capacity. And of course, I would be training jiu-jitsu, and I would be doing some sort of strength training, and probably a whole body strength training twice a week would be optimal with this type of program, especially if you're a recreational athlete. So thanks again, guys, for stopping by. I will see you on the mats, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope it was valuable so that you can see how to enhance your cardio for jiu-jitsu. Us.